The Haunting Halloween by Ultimate Blade 1000. It's Halloween. Let's how much trouble Team rwby can get into. Status, complete. Published, November 1, 2014. Updated, November 26, 2015. Words, 8,659. Chapters, 3. Rated, Fiction M, Language, English, Genre, Humor/Horror, Characters, Ruby R, Weiss S, Blake B, John A, Reviews, 6, Faves, 15, Follows, 14. Original source, https://www.fanfiction.net/s/10794956/1/ The Haunting Halloween exported with the assistance of rwby.net. The Haunting Halloween Introduction. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3. Chapter 1. It was a dark night. The streets were filled with people in costume, going around Vale. It was Halloween and everyone enjoyed the fact they could masquerade as someone else for one night. On this night everyone was equal, including human and fauna, since they dress up as different people, and with the right costume you couldn't tell the difference between them. This was the night that everyone could enjoy themselves as someone else, and most importantly enjoy the treats that were given out. Oh, I can't wait to get some candy. Maybe we can get enough for the whole year. Ruby was excited for this night. She was always able to get the most candy with her semblance helping her speed around Vale. This year she was dressed in black robe hiding her cape under the cloak. She had a white mask that made her look like death. She was now the Grim Reaper, and with Crescent Rose she was completely in costume, though she had to change the blade so that it was harmless to people and unloaded it. Okay Ruby, but don't get too excited. You have to go at our speed and not you hyper speed you always do. We have to stick together in case Roman decide to do something this Halloween. Weiss warned as she finished getting dressed in her costume. She had put on a black eye mask, with a black flat-brimmed hat and a black cape. She decided to dress as Zorro since he was from a higher class and used a rapier as his weapon. Oh come on Weiss. It's Halloween. What kind of villain attack on Halloween? Yang was dressed as a cheerleader, her hair in twin tails and wearing a mini skirt and a matching uniform that read Beacon across the chest. She had the pom-pom to complete the costume but left them on the bed. Weiss has a point. Even if it's a holiday we shouldn't let our guard down. The White Fang may strike and we need to be ready. Blake said while readying Gamble's shroud to her back. She was dressed as a cat. It was the simplest, and with it she could get rid of her bow and not be discovered as a faunus while she walked around. Okay everyone ready, let's go. Ruby ran to the door opening, ready to begin the hunt for sweets. As she opened the door she found that a large suit of armor blocking her exit. What the? Ruby looked at the suit quizzically, inspecting it to see if there was indication to who it was. The armor moved with a jolt, surprising Ruby, and the rest of team jumped back in surprise. Happy Halloween! The voice of John was heard echoing within the suit. So what are you planning to do tonight? John asked while removing his helmet to be able to see better since the eye slot made things a bit harder to see. Oh, we're going trick or treating. Ruby answered, holding a large sack that was going to hold all the candy that they collected tonight. That cool. Me and everyone else is going to this party later. Why don't you come by later? John put back on his helmet and walked to his dorm, where he met Pyrrha dressed as a dead bride, while Ren and Nora were dressed in black leather coat wearing all black including black glasses. Come on Ren, let's go. Nora announced without her usually bubbly personality and instead with a slightly serious demeanor that was rare seen in her. Team JNPR followed Nora lead and waved goodbye to Team RWBY. Ruby, instead of going trick or treating, why don't we go to that party? Yang asked, grabbing her pom-poms and walking into the hallway. I would much rather go to this party than do something as childish or asking stranger for candy. Weiss as she moves into the hallway with the others looking for direction to the party that the blonde had mentioned. I have no problem doing either, but I want to go to this party as well. Blake agreed with Weiss and Yang and stood next to them as Ruby looked distraught that her teams rather go to a party than get free candy. Come on guys, it's free candy. Ruby whined to her teammates. Ruby, you can get candy any day. Weiss sighed as she recalled all the time Ruby somehow got a huge amount of candy somehow and without explanation. There was even a time she got a huge amount of cakes for somewhere. When someone asked her, she just said, "I found them." Since there was never any news of burglary anywhere, they went with it. "Yeah Ruby, we should go to this party, it sounds fun." Yang agreed with the heiress as she was already walking to the party. "Come on guys, let's roll." "Come on Ruby, this will be fun." Blake insisted. She followed the blonde cheerleader and the daughter of Zorro. With a sigh, Ruby threw the large bag now full of broken dreams and followed her teammates to their destination. The party was in an abandoned warehouse at the edge of Vale. It was abandoned because of a fire that was the result of fireworks accident. Only one person had died in the fire. It was said that he cursed those who dared enter this place soon. It was just forgotten until now. The exterior was broken, the whole building was burned to a black char, but the interior was amazing. There a giant glowing pumpkin in the middle of the ceiling. There are speakers in the front with a DJ wearing a giant skull head with a sombrero. If there was a trace of damage, no one could find it. The only thing that weren't fixed were the windows, which were still broken. It was either that they overlooked it, so that gave it a haunted exterior by leaving them broken. "This is really nice." Weiss surprised that an abandoned place can be decorated so nicely. When she decorated for Beacon's dance, it took her a while, but this was done in one night. She was impressed. "Oh look, there's John." Yang pointed to the dancing knight in the middle of the dance floor. Even with armor on, John still knew how to dance in style. "Damn, that kid can dance," a voice from behind them said. Everyone turned to see that it was Sun dressed as a pirate. "So who is it anyway?" Sun questioned, wondering who would try to dance in a full suit of armor. "It's just John, believe it or not." Blake answered the pirate question. She continued to look around to see that Neptune was dressed as Poseidon. He was talking to girls from another academy instead of dancing because he can't actually dance. How can he dance in that thing? Sun surprised that he would be able to move so well in armor and not be exhausted already. "Okay everybody, let's dance." Yang was about to rush to the dance floor until the lights went out. Something let out a horrid shriek like someone was burned on fire. The light soon returned. Everyone was looking around to see if anything had changed. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. That was until started screaming and floating in the air. "John!" Everyone screamed as they watched him flying in the air, lifted up by some force. Weiss looked around for propulsion dust. Nothing. He was flying in midair in pain by something unseen. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" He screamed, hoping that his pleas would be answered, but they weren't. Soon his head started spin around his body and soon his limbs followed. No one could move, watching this horror that was unfolding before their eyes. Then he exploded in a fountain of blood, body falling to the ground, limbs scattered everywhere. The lights went out again. Everyone screamed in terror, hoping they weren't next to suffer the same fate. There was soon a booming laughter in the dark, people thinking is the ghost of the dead. The light came back on. "So how's everyone Halloween?" the DJ asked the audience. Everyone looked at him like he was a madman. Yang was about to kill him until she saw Pira laughing. "Happy Halloween everyone!" she and the DJ shouted. The DJ removed his head to reveal that it was John. Everyone looked at the suit part to see that everyone thing was fake on the inside. "Sorry for the scare everyone, but this just had to happen," John said, coming down for the DJ booth. He and Pira had this idea at the beginning of the month and decided that this was the best night to do it. When John made it to Team rwby, he saw a mix of emotion. Weiss was angry that he had pulled such a prank on them. Yang was impressed that he would do something like this. Ruby was happy to see that he was safe, and Blake was curious of how they made the armor float without the use of dust and any visible magnets. Weiss was the first to speak. "How could you do this? You almost gave us all heart attacks." She was fuming that he would do something like that to everyone. Weiss understood that pranks were pulled on this day, but to horrify everyone into thinking that you have been killed by a ghost in a nightmarish fashion was going a bit too far. Though a small part of her was also relieved that he was okay. That was probably the best Halloween prank I've seen yet. What did you use for the inside of the armor? Yang questioned, thinking to do the same prank but to her father or maybe the instructors instead. Oh, nothing, just some red dye and some leftover ballistic gel for the training room. Hira explained as she walked over to John. She was going to leave out the part about her semblance and that she used it to move the armor. After some questions, dancing and Nora and Ren acting out a scene from a movie, everyone left. Okay, this was pretty fun night. Ruby said, feeling better that she had fun with everyone tonight. She really wanted to get some candy at least. They soon reached the dorm and changed to the pajamas. Ruby was the last one to get dressed. By the time she was done, the others were sleeping in their beds. Ruby touched the leg of the bed, noticing there was a small W on the leg of her bed. Ruby wondered what the W could stand for until she looked down at Weiss. Just for that you don't get any candy, Ruby thought, reaching under her pillow to find a huge amount of candy. No one can stop me from getting candy on Halloween. Ruby snickered into her pillow as she enjoyed a candy bar in all its glory. What happened to my candy? John looked around the room in search of his beloved candy. He had collected some before she had went to the party and now it is gone. Why me? John questioned as he got ready for bed, unknowing that his candy was just next door in the hands of a thief. Trick or treat, John. Ruby smiled just as she fell asleep. Happy Halloween. Please review good or bad. This will change in the next chapter into a real horror and will be changed to M after. Thanks for reading chapter 2. This is horror. There is a little humor, you have been warned. The night was dark and cloudy, no chance of even the slightest ray of light would pierce it. All of Vale was preparing for Halloween, including the students of Beacon. Most academies don't celebrate the holidays that don't have any family ties to them. Beacon was different because of Headmaster Ojban. He believed that students should enjoy the comforts of being students while they can before becoming hunter and huntresses and have less time for personal endeavors like Halloween and trick or treating. The staff members were included in these events by having a small party after while the students are out doing what they want to this night. Though if any students that are found egging and destroying any property, that will be forced to clean the whole school in place of the janitorial staff. This stopped pranks at Beacon. But this Halloween was different. There was a spike of grim attacks since the break in the city's defenses because of Roman. All hunter-huntresses and hunter in training all had to patrol while the children treat or treat this year. I can't believe that we can't go trick or treating this year. I was really looking forward to breaking my record of most candy gotten in one night. Ruby whined as she roamed with her teammates around the edges of Vale looking for Grim that would near the border. Come on, Rubes, you knew this day would eventually come. Yang caringly said as she patted the back of her disappointed sister. She wanted to go to a party tonight, but since they had to patrol the city for Grim, there was no way around it. At least she would be able to walk around instead of be stuck in one place for too long. Well, what did you expect, Ruby? Hunters and huntresses don't have the luxuries of being able to celebrate the holidays. Weiss told her childish leader as she looked around, not expecting to see anything out of the ordinary, but it was better to make sure than overlook something that could be important. Weiss looked around to find children and parents roaming the streets of Vale, all with costumes that ranged to grim to famous hunters from history. So nothing was really out of the ordinary. Maybe if we lucky we might get something out of this. Blake wanted to cheer up her saddened leader but was at a loss of words what to tell her. She understood that Ruby was 2 years younger than the rest of her teammates, so knowing that her friends are out there having fun trick or treating while she walks around in the streets looking for threats that are most likely not even there must make her envious of them. You guys are right, but... Ruby was lost in thought, trying to figure out what she wanted to say. She knew that as any of her friends saw her that they would be jealous that she was able to get into Beacon and was allowed to patrol the city like she were already huntress. But a part of her wanted to still be in Signal and not have the responsibilities of having to patrol the city on her favorite holiday. I can't give up, no, not after all that we've just went through. Ruby thought as she continued to walk. You guys are right, we have to do this even if we had better things that we could be doing. Ruby sighed, hanging her head low while she talked. That's the spirit, Ruby. Yang was happy to see a change in her sister's attitude. They spent another hour of roaming the city, finding nothing, not even a hint of Grim or any White Fang activity. While most people would be thankful that there was no trouble this night, that didn't apply to Yang when she got bored. What a waste of a perfectly good night, the blonde stated as the team walked back to their dorms. I know that we were supposed to defend the city if anything came up, but nothing did. I supposed it better than doing nothing all night, but at least give us robbery in the middle of a costume contest to make things interesting. Yang complained to her teammate, who after watching all of Vale enjoy Halloween while they watched the barriers that protect Vale and looking for criminals, they were slightly inclined to agree. You're right. I would have been interesting to see some type of action tonight, but I rather I be something simple like a lost child than a robbery. I would like to see people get hurt by accident while we try to apprehend him. Blake agreed, as she remembered all the time that she saw lost children during past Halloweens, children crying because they lost their mother because of a sea of people, and matching costumes didn't make it any easier to find your kid when you lost them. Yet I remember one time I was rushing house to house non-stop, and when I finally stopped I realized that I had gotten lost and I could find your or my dad anywhere. I started to cry until they found me 5 minutes after. Apparently, I started to use my semblance by accident and started to leave a trail of rose petals everywhere. Ruby looks around, seeing the house that she had visited as a child and how much candy she had collected that night. That was the night she had the record for the most candy collected in one night. She had enough for 2 months, even after sharing half of it with Yang, though Ruby kept of the gum because Yang usually fell asleep within her mouth and it always landed in her hair. After that time she got protective of her hair due to the dozens of the time she had to get it cut to get rid of it. Yeah, let's back to the dorm. I want to take these heels off. I don't know why I don't get normal shoes like everyone else. Y sighed as her aching feet tortured her every step of the way to the dorm. Okay, we're almost to the jet. I can't wait to get these stupid heels off and get into my bed. Weiss thought as they approached the terminal. An ear piercing is heard from all the way in the back of the city. This was in a district that had many Grim infestation in the past, but in recent years the Grim had stopped appearing, but the worry of them returning had made sure that no one had tried living within a mile of it. Great, just at the end of the fucking end of our patrol. Weiss was pissed that she would now have to wear her heels for another hour. If this is some idiot screaming for no reason, I swear I'm going to give a nice slowly painful reason to them when I find them. Weiss threatened as she looked in the direction of the scream, holding Murtnaster in hand. Hurry, we have to see if that person's in trouble. The red-headed leader exclaimed as she began to rush towards the scream's direction. The team soon reached the house that was abandoned because of Grim. The house still bore the marks to the attack that ravaged it a long time ago. It was boarded up. Expect the door that looked recently torn open. She must be inside. Yang rushed to the door only to see darkness. She could barely see 5 into the house. She grabbed her scroll and activated the flashlight to find furniture destroyed, torn to sunders from claws slashing, bullet holes in the walls, red splattered across the walls as if a painter had gone mad within the house. The pictures that were hanging were torn, broken, shattered faces gone from each picture. This can't be good. Blake looked around at the damage, trying to find any sign of someone being here. Nothing. If there was a struggle here, it was pretty quick. We should split up. We have to find the person that's in trouble. I don't know, Blake, I think that might be a bad idea. Weiss looks around at the carnage that was around her. She wasn't afraid of the dark or ghost or anything like that, but something about being in a dark abandoned house that was most likely a massacre scene in the past rubbed her the wrong way. Why don't we split into team? That way none of us have to face the enemy alone. Agreed. I'll go with Yang and you go with Ruby. Blake grabs Gamble's shroud from her back, moving forwards through the veil of darkness before her. Yang followed her lead while Ruby and Weiss began to search the upstairs. Every step up the stairs creaked from the new weight that was placed on it after years on nothing but dust and cobwebs. As Ruby and Weiss searched the upstairs, they saw more carnage than they ever expected. In the darkness you would have believed that the walls were painted red, but with light you see it the blood, the handprints that covered the knobs, the doors down the hall. Claws mare the trailed on the walls to the end of the hall, slash marks on the door where family members probably tried to hide but were found eventually. This is kind of scary, Weiss. Ruby cringed as she saw the one of the blood-splattered rooms. Imagine the horrors that the people had to face in their final moments before they were killed. It must have been horrible seeing loved dismembered in front of them, seeing the life draining from their eyes as the monster moved in closer to baring their fangs covered in blood, skin, and crushed bones fragments. Ruby shook her head trying to get rid of those thoughts, but they were still there as they moved through the house. Weiss, you see anything yet? The fearful huntress asked, hoping that the scream they heard was just some animated scream for Halloween and someone just forgot to turn it off at the end of the night. No, nothing. I think this might have been a mistake. But if someone is here, we have to find them. Weiss inspected everything that she could see, hoping to find a clue as to what had happened here. All she could see is old bloodstains and destroyed furniture. I guess we should find Blake and Yang and see if they have found anything. Both girls went back downstairs to see that there was no light. Yang Ruby called out to her sister, waiting for a response from the shadows, only to hear nothing. Yang Ruby yelled this time, only to have the same response as before. Weiss. Ruby looks at Weiss worryingly that her sister may be in trouble. It's okay, Ruby, they are probably can't hear you because they're outside or in a room somewhere. Weiss tried to reassure her leader as she feels a bit worried, as Yang would make at least a bit of sound to assure them that she was there, but there was just nothing. Why don't we go look for them to save some time? Weiss held her scroll to show the way across the kitchen area. It was the same as the rest of the house destroyed. The only difference was that the blood on the floor was diluted by water by some estimate. Where could they be? Weiss looked for her teammates in each and every room on the first floor, not finding any sign of them except of one open door in the back of the living room. The girls went to the door to find that it led to the basement. The stairs were tattered and broken, claw marks in the stairway. Do we really need to go down there? Ruby questioned, looking down the abyss of stairs that lead into the darkness. Yes, Ruby, unless you don't want to find your sister. Weiss stepped down the stairs, watching each and every step, trying not to fall down. Okay, Ruby followed the heiress down the stairs. The basement was dank and dark. A quick shine of light showed that this was supposed to be a panic room in case the Grim attacked, and by the looks of it no one ever made it. It was clean, nothing that showed use. There was still a teddy bear place on a bed, probably for a little girl that wanted to feel safe. Unfortunately she wasn't, no one was. Come on, Ruby, let's keep going. Weiss walked down a hall feeling horrible, thinking that a little girl and her family was massacred and that she never got to experience life as a whole, but that was the way of the world. Death comes when it wants and takes whoever it wants, uncaring if it was a child or not. Weiss, do you think they're safe? Ruby worried as they searched the basement for her sister and her faunus friend. She thought they would be able to see them by now, or at least be able to hear Yang break something or say something to Blake about this place. That's it, I'm going to call them. Let's hope that they are able to answer. Ruby went for her scroll to find that there was no signal. As they looked, another scream was heard, this time closer to them than ever before. It was in the basement. The question was what room? Weiss and Ruby rushed quickly each room that was closed. The red and white duo looked through each room, finding nothing that even resembled anyone in trouble. Where is she? Ruby questioned, using her semblance to double-check every room quickly. Still nothing. The girl's screams came from this floor, she knew it, but where? As she returned to Weiss, she tripped on something that tugged on her boot. Watch where you're going, we're in a situation if you haven't noticed. Weiss told her fallen leader as she scanned the hall for something, trying to find where in this house the victim can be. She looked at Ruby again to see that she had a rope around her leg that leads to something under the carpet. Ruby, move. Weiss hurried as she helped Ruby get up so that she could see what was under it. Under the carpet was a small door that was different than the rest of the house. It was new. It looked like that it was built at least a few months ago. Come on, Ruby, let's go. Weiss threw open the door and ran down the stairs that lead downwards into the unknown. Fucking hell. Ruby wanted to be with her sister to help her now that they have found where the screams were coming from. Ruby followed that Weiss down the stairs. As they got to the bottom they noticed that there were chains hanging from the ceiling all new, and there was one room at the end of a long dark hallway. As they moved closer to the door they started to hear muffled sounds coming from the room. The duo looked at each other to confirm they had the same idea of going through the door, weapons drawn ready for a battle. With a rush of speed both of them push open the door to find a nightmarish sight. It was bound a bloodied Yang and Blake. Both were bound in place to wall in chains. Yang. Blake. Ruby rushed to the front of them, seeing that both were rendered unconscious. Ruby gasped when she saw what they did to Blake. Both of her cat eats had been burned to the point you couldn't tell that they were once ears unless you saw them beforehand. Yang was another story, just bad bruise across her body. No doubt they tried to do the same thing with her, but her semblance got in the way and they couldn't burn her because her body matched the heat. In the silence the tap of heels could be heard. When she turned around she saw who it was. It was Neo, Roman's sidekick, standing behind and tapping her heel on a mocking fashion with a grin to match it. "Looks like you've finally made it." Neo walked to a crate and sits cross-legged, parasol opened, grinning. "I thought you would be faster in coming here, then again you found this by accident, so I shouldn't have gotten my hope seeing none of you are good or finding anything." Neo mocked as she watched both remain team members ready their weapons to fight her. "Oh, this is going to be so much fun." Neo's grin grew into a full-blown sadistic smile, still sitting in the crate, eyes switching between brown and pink. In fit of blind fury and rage Ruby rushes towards the torturer of her sister and best friend. A blizzard of rose petals followed Ruby as she went to kill Neo in one clean movement. "Die!" Ruby screams as she reached her target, swinging her scythe. Neo sat there unimpressed at the revenge-hungry huntress in front of her. As Crescent Rose struck Neo's neck she shattered into pieces. "Man, you and your sister just never learn, do you?" Neo walks from behind Weiss as if had always been there since the beginning of their confrontation. "I wonder if Snow Angel her is any smarter than the both of you." Neo pull out her cane blade from her parasol and attacks Weiss with a quick spin, aiming for her throat. Weiss blocked with Mertnaster and changes the dust cylinder to fire, wanting revenge by burning her as she burned as Blake was. "Weiss, get down!" Ruby shouted, aiming Crescent Rose at Neo. Weiss jumped back to avoid a high-caliber round going through her as well. Neo just looked at Ruby and raised her parasol and opened it to defend herself. Ruby fired upon Neo, aiming to kill her, but every shot exploded and shattered as it hit the parasol. Finally Ruby had to reload, and with this opening Neo struck. She rushed toward her with a flurry of stabs. Ruby was dropped the cartridge and went on the defensive, twirling Crescent Rose tried to block every jab of Neo's weapon. Weiss used a glyph to propel herself forwards to strike her in the back. Ruby saw this and went the offensive, making sure that she had no escape. "Die!" Ruby swung as Weiss moved at astounding speeds. Between Ruby's reach and the speed that Weiss was moving at, Neo was going to be killed. Then she did something that made no sense. She moved back into Crescent Rose's path and closer to the heiress, poised to stab her. The second that Crescent Rose hit her she shattered again. Instead of facing Ruby she faced Weiss, blade in hand and outside of Crescent Rose's range. "See you, Snow Angel." With a whisper Neo stuck out her sword and used Weiss' momentum against her and slashed her nearly in half. Weiss crashed in the wall that was full of tools that hung on the wall. She was heavily bleeding, her lower intestine hand out from her wound. "Ruby, help me!" It was all but a whisper, feeling the warmth of her body leave her as she laid on the ground. Ruby watched as one of her teammates bleed out in front of her. She didn't want to believe that this was happening. First, she had lost her mother and now her friend. This was hell. She had to stop her now before she had lost any more people she had cared about. "Oh, I thought she would put up a better fight, being a Schnee and all." Neo appeared in front of Ruby and baited head with cane part of her parasol that sent Ruby into the same wall as Weiss's body was. Ruby's vision was blurry from the blow to the head, her eyes blurring everything into shapes. "This is so disappointing. You fought so many grim, but look at you now, beaten and dead from one girl with an umbrella." Neo mocked as she walked towards Yang and Blake, who were still unconscious hanging on the wall. "Your sister put up a good fight, but she really should learn that brawn doesn't matter if you can't hit your target. And then there's this bitch of a Faunus. Neo's demeanor changed from mocking to a calm anger. She put away the only person that care about me. Roman saved me after my family sold me to a drug dealer for drugs. They did unspeakable things to me and he saved me, and now because of her I might never see him again. Neo was furious but didn't let it show, but her eyes showed it all. They kept changing every time she blinked. Brown brown, pink brown, brown pink, pink pink, and at some time I looked like her iris were a brown and pink swirl that went into her pupil. But now I going to even the score. Neo grabbed her cane and slid the sword out slowly and placed the blade over her heart and began to push it in slowly. The pain forced Blake to gain consciousness. All you heard is Blake's screams of tortured pain as Neo slowly penetrated her heart. The smile on her face, she showed that she enjoyed every throw of agony that Blake had, every scream until she went silent, blood slowing from her chest until it stopped. Ruby couldn't move. It was pure hell, her eyes still unable to make out what had truly happened, but the mental images forced their way in, making see in perfect clarity of what happened. Ruby tried to stand but her body refused to obey her. It only lay there as if she was already dead. Since your sister was a good fight, I'm not going to torture her as bad as other. Neo just cut off her head at first to make it a quick death, then as if the thought had just came to her head decided to cut each limb off with 4 strokes. Each limb was bound to the wall, head laying on the floor 5 feet away from her dismembered carcass. All done. Neo walked towards Ruby, want to see the girl and she would react to her team destroyed, sister killed, and now facing death. Why? That all that went through Ruby's mind. She had nothing left now. Her family's dead, her teammates dead, and now her life is over. So what do you think I should do with you? Neo asked the destroyed teen in front of her. She saw now what left in the husk that was Ruby Rose, and she loved it. I don't care anymore, just do whatever you want. Ruby didn't care about life or death, she just wanted this nightmare of a night to come to an end. She heard something heavy being lifted and soon could make out the shape of what it was. The thing that Neo had picked up was Crescent Rose and aimed at her with a bang. The nightmare was over for her. Well, that was fun. Neo started to walk out of the sub-basement and soon left the house under the full moonlight. Happy Halloween, Team rwby. I hope that your friends put up a better fight than you did. She made it to the safe house that Roman had set up for them in the past. As she entered, she looked at a bulletin board that had the faces of the people that she going to kill next, and soon she had a next target. Good luck, Team JNPR, you're going to need it. Neo smiled as she began to plan her next killing. Please review good or bad. Chapter 3. Sorry, this is very late and probably bad. Halloween was upon the city of Remont once again, as the street were starting to fill with decorations, costumes, and candy just as before. This was something that most people looked forward to, being able to dress up in costume, party, and get candy from houses. That was not the case for those that attended Beacon, however. This time it was a day of mourning, as some of the students remembered that this was the day that Team rwby had been killed brutally in the dark basement of an abandoned house. There was speculation that it was a monstrous grim that killed them. Some believed it was a ghost, others believed it was the White Fang taking advantage of fact everyone wore costumes and used it to lure and killed them. All of them were wrong, and it was the right hand of the currently imprisoned Roman Torchwick, Neo. She wanted revenge for the loss of the person that saved her from being from the hell that was her life, being used as a sex toy to anyone who paid. Even after she still killed them, she still wanted more and chose to bring down the establishment that was Beacon Academy, but she had wait for the right time, and that time was arriving very soon. I still can't believe Ren couldn't come, Nora pouted, missing her friend as she and her team walked through the streets of Vale. The streets were filled with kids, teens, and parents, everyone dressed in costume. The kids ran house to house as their parents ran after them, teens roving around in packs talking and laughing. It's okay, Nora. Ren had to finish his assignment for Port's class. Hira said as she placed her hand on her teammate's shoulder as they walked around looking for trouble. So far there was nothing, not even an egged house. Looking around, seeing all the vibrant colors on the houses and lamp poles made her festive. She would have loved to be one of the teens walking around in costume with friends, but she was a huntress in training and she knew that she couldn't do that. She sighed. Sometimes she wished she chose to be something else, maybe something that would have allowed her such things like a weaponsmith or something that would be a burden to her as much. A small girl ran towards them. She wore her black hair in pigtails and about what they would remember to be about Ruby's height. Her emerald green eyes looked distressed before she spoke. I need your help. There are people wear weird white masks attacking my older brother, please help him. The girl looked at them, tears in her eyes. Everyone looked at her and got their weapons ready. The young girl saw this and started to run away to what they assumed was where her brother was being attacked by the White Fang. John, Hira, and Nora followed swiftly, following her into a dark alleyway. They followed until the girl that was leading them stopped and fell to her knees crying. As soon as they got close they saw why she was crying. Everyone saw the trail of blood that was in the alleyway. The amount that was in the dark path wasn't that would be dangerous if lost, but would certain hinder whoever lost it. We have to find him quickly, John stated as he started to follow the blood trail, hoping to find the brother quickly and get him medical aid before it was too late. Hira followed John as Nora tried to assure the small girl that everything was going to be alright and that she should stay close to her so that she'll be safe. The group followed the blood trail to a dark metallic door. The blonde braced himself for what was behind the door. Walking through the entryway, the room was dark, only to be illuminated by the shattered moonlight leaking through the broken windows. There were papers scattered everywhere. Looking around, it looked like it was a small factory of some kind that went out of business a long time ago. John waited, listening for a single sound, any indication that someone was there with them. He heard nothing but his own breathing. He kept going, following the droplets of blood trailing deeper inside. He looked back, seeing everyone moving behind him quietly. Hira was searching left and right, making sure that they would not be ambushed by anyone, while Nora stood next to girl that currently was rubbing her eyes. "John, you think this is a trap?" Hira whispered to John. It was haunting being in a dark factory, maybe surrounded by the White Fang or no one at all, but the uncertainty put her on edge. They were almost in the middle of the room. If there was ever a place to ambush them, it would be then, but there wasn't any sign that there was anyone there. "Guys, I see something," John said as he saw a shadow figure in the distance that was on the path of the blood trail. Soon the dark figure was a person bound to a chair facing away from the group. John over to the body to see how badly he was hurt. The man beaten and bloody. He appeared to be in his early 20s, dark hair, and was dressed normally. John went to untie the brother when he saw a sight that shocked him to his very core. The man's eyes were missing from their sockets. The blonde jumped back, heart pounding in his chest, feeling his stomach churning, making him want to throw up. "John, what happened?" Hira rushed to his leader's side. It was then she saw the terror in his eyes that she had never seen before. Before he could even answer, a loud creak ran through the entire room and ended with the clank of metal lock. Hira, Nora, and John looked back to find the one at the door was the girl they were helping. Instead of the tear-filled eyes were cleaner, and the face full of sorrow she had before was now filled with a malicious grin. "You know, I thought because of what happened last year you guys would be a lot more careful with trusting people." The girl started walking towards them, her eyes changing from emerald green to pink and brown. "And just so you know, my name is Neo," Neo said as she reached down, lifting a tile to reveal that a black umbrella was hidden under it. "What are you talking about? What do you mean last year?" Nora shouted, looked at Neo, confused at what Neo was saying. Then the thought hit, as it soon did everyone else. She was the one that killed Team rwby. She was the reason that every day they would look across the hall now that room next to theirs was empty and vacant. "You're the reason Team rwby was killed." Hira spoke, looking at her as she stood there smiling like it's some little that she was enjoying. Hira left John's side to Nora as she readied Milos to kill the short girl in front of her. "Well, yeah, if you ask me, they deserved it. They put away my personal savior, the man who saved my life. Don't worry, I gave them mostly painless deaths, except that bitch Fanons and the blonde, those I let it drag out a bit more than Eris and the redhead." Neo explained, smiling, remembering last year's events and how fun it was cutting into the flesh of Yang and Blake and ending it with a bang with Ruby's weapon. Now she planned to do the same with them. Oh, and if you're wondering about the stiff in the chair, he thought it was a good idea to spy on me while I was changing clothes, she said, poking to the body behind them. I'll kill you, Nora screamed as she charged at her man-hild, ready to smash her into pieces. Neo rolled her eyes as she shattered into pieces. Nora was shocked to see that the pig-haired girl was gone in an instant. She looked around the room wanting to find the person that was responsible for killing 4 of her best friends. Neo was standing at the far right of the building, waving at her, signaling that she was over there. Nora charged again. This time the Neo did not move, only wait until Nora was in striking distance with her weapon. As soon as the enraged hammer wielder went to smash her with the hammer, that was when she made her moved. Neo lashed out quickly, revealing a blade inside of her umbrella and cutting Nora's side before Manhild even hit the ground. The wound was shallow, avoid cutting anything vital. Neo moved quickly and get a safe distance away from Nora, always making sure she was out her reaching distance. She smiled, watching Nora readying herself to kill with her huge hammer. She compared her to Yang, always so head first when she was fighting, trying to overwhelm her opponents with strength and a powerful weapon. The difference was the reach of the weapon, and that's what made Nora such an easier target than Yang. She watched as Nora lift her hammer only to drop it later. Nora soon appeared to have trouble standing up and soon fell to the floor. Nora appeared to be breathing, but wasn't moving at all. What did you do to her? John shouted as he readied himself to fight her. Neo turned to face Pyrrha and John, not even concerning herself with the girl they were concerned with. Oh, her. Well, I used some poison that I collected over the year and put on the tip of my sword. Seeing that it did only cause numbness or possibly death, I think I should have studied what types of poisons each animal had instead of just looking up what poison to use in a fight, Neo said as she leaned on the hook of her cane sword. Pyrrha and John were in horror in seeing the strongest member of their team being taken down by twin-tailed girl. Both them raised their shield in defense. Neo was quick with her assault, deciding to drive a wedge between the blonde and the redhead. She was quick and focused on John, knowing that he was the weakest member on her team compared to the rest. Using her speed, get close to him and avoided every attack that he attempted without even trying. The next time he swung his sword, that she grabbed his arm and kicked him behind his leg, put him to his knees. From the corner of her eye she noticed that Pyrrha was taking aim at her with her spear. Neo grabbed a small dust crystal from her back pocket and threw it at her, causing Pyrrha to break no line of sight. With the opening she made, she used her semblance to shift her perception, making her appear as though she was standing where John was currently. When Pyrrha was ready, she threw Milos directly at John, believing that it was her not paying attention to her surroundings. As soon as she heard the shattering noise, her heart sank. The redhead watched as her spear struck John in the neck. Neo let go of the boy's arm, letting his body hit the floor. Thanks, champ, Neo taunted as she moved around the bleeding body of the blonde, taking the spear from the body. She was about to use the weapon against Pyrrha, but feel a powerful that caused her to lose the weapon as it returned to Pyrrha. The fiery redhead eyes were swollen with tears and full of rage, nothing but to slaughter the girl in front of her. She was taught at a young age to keep her emotions in check so that she would be level-headed during competitions. All of the training was now gone. She let herself feel her rage and decided to channel it all on Neo. Baiting Milos, she rushed forward, ready to attack. Neo just waited as the Pyrrha rushed at her. Pyrrha transformed Milos into its rifle form and took a shot at her adversary, and as she expected, it shattered the moment it connected with the glass-like form. Looking around the dark room in search of her target, falling to find her, only seeing that she had left her sword behind in her escape. Smart girl. You're the first one that figured out my semblance. Her voice rung throughout the factory, making it difficult for her to tell where she was speaking from. Pyrrha waited, looking for a sign of where had run off to. She considered looking around the factory for her, but there was no telling what she could had rigged one of the rooms up. These were all the variables that ran through her mind as she waited for something to happen. She waited for what felt like hours and nothing, not a sound. All she heard was the lone sound of her own breathing. I guess I have nothing to lose if I move now. Hira, though, seeing as Neo didn't killed even after she stood still for so long. Hira moved slowly across the room and soon found a door. She opened the door, finding a circular room full of mirrors. It was weird seeing multiple reflections of herself, eyes reddened and determined, looking for the girl that caused 2 of her teammates' deaths. As soon as she entered the room, the door closed and Neo appeared before her. Well, that took a bit long. She smiled at her. Neo lifted at what seemed like a crossbow at her. Instinctively, she raised her shield and for added measure used her semblance to create a field around herself to protect herself from being shot. Hira heard the shot go off, but instead of feeling the force hit her shield, felt the bolt enter and leave her back. As she fell, she looked at the bolt, seeing that it was a wooden tipped with no type of metal inside. I know about you, semblance. You think you were so keen, using it in small amounts so no one would notice. She smiled as she would her die on the floor. Neo walked away from the scene of her newest victims. She had to admit that they were more fun to kill than Team rwby. She personally led them to their death, tricking Pyrrha into killing her own teammate, and she didn't have to wait for anyone else to show because they split up to search. Well, who's next on my hit list? Neo pulled out a small pad filled with team names, professors, and those she wanted to kill just because. Oh, they might be fun. Neo, as she closed the pad and walked into the streets once again, knowing who her next target would be. Please review good or bad. If there's any mistakes, I'll fix them.